The people in, Hazel, let the
All
people
right.
in from the waiting room. Look at all these people here interested in CGMs, and then we'll turn off the waiting room. So people, I got it turned off. So hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar today. I'm super excited about it because those of you who know me and have been around for a while know that I'm a CGM fanatic. I've been, using CGMs long before anybody knew what they were. And now people, when they see it on my arm, they'll say, "Oh, which brand of CGM are you using?" instead of, "What's that thing on your arm?" or "Are you diabetic?" or something like that. So it's become more and more mainstream to empower people to take charge of their health, right? To take charge and know what the heck your food and your lifestyle and your stress and your exercise and your sleep or lack thereof are doing to your health. And when you have this information, it's a life changer. And for years, I've been telling people about these, and they go to their doctors, and the doctor says, "You're not diabetic. I'm not prescribing it for you." And so that's why I was so excited when I was introduced to Boris at Thea Health. Thea Health, I say it wrong all the time. Thea
No, it's
Health,
all good.
doesn't
Thea,
matter.
yeah.
It's you say tomato, I say tomato, right? So
Exactly.
I got introduced and found out that I can actually facilitate my patients, my clients, my followers, whoever wants to actually use this technology, I can facilitate you getting that, plus have a really cool app that you can use. And so I invited Boris here today. He'll tell you a little bit more about his background and his own personal health journey that led him to create this company to help people get this valuable tool. And I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in right now. The fact that these things are by prescription only in the US, I think is a travesty. Up in Canada, where Boris is from, you can walk into the drugstore and buy one. In Europe, you can order one or buy one in a pharmacy. But in the US, where it's a controlled substance, guys, it's behind closed doors, but you can get Tylenol and OD and die. You can get, Pepsid D or whatever, all these medications without a prescription OTC over the counter, but we can't get this device that can save our lives. And I don't know anybody that's ever died of an overdose of a CGM or an infection from a CGM or whatever the other excuses that they use. So I'm a big believer in empowering people to take charge of their own health. It's your body. You get to make the decisions, and you want to make informed decisions and not wait until you have diabetes or some other dread disease that's caused by metabolic imbalance before you get to take charge. So without further ado, I'm introducing you to Boris Berjan. Do I say that?
It's Berjan, but don't worry, it's Eastern European, so
Okay,
it's bound to be butchered all the time.
Awesome.
No big deal. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to everybody. Me and Dr. Rita Marie have a great relationship. I love all her content, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I think where I'm probably going to start before I get into presentation and visuals and stuff like that is to say, I've had 2 chronic diseases in my life that I had to battle through. So one, when I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with asthma. So I was on the puffers, coughing all the time, could barely run, and the doctors told me, "Listen, this is for life. There's nothing you can really do. Just keep taking the puffer." 2 years later, I had above normal lung capacity, playing soccer all the time, off every single puffer, and I've never had a problem with my lungs ever since. And that moment in time in my life really stuck with me because there was a disconnect between what doctors were telling me and what actually happened. And there was a path that I clearly took that got me better. Long story short, going to like my early 20s, I was diagnosed with severe Crohn's disease. So I'm 6'4". I lost 50 pounds in 3 months. So if you saw me, you couldn't not react. You basically were like, what, are you dying? Like, what is the issue here? And that's when I had another moment in my life where I said, I'm not going to let this dictate what's going to happen to me. I mean, my intestines were so bad that the large intestine and the small intestine, like the transition between that period was basically almost closed. Like it had so much scar tissue there that,
Mm.
you know, if I would eat food, I would start throwing up, end up in the hospital with cramping. I had to get on IVs probably like 7 or 8 times in a short time period. So I was scheduled for operation surgery. And I said, you know, I really don't want to go under the knife. And if I have to, I will, but, you know, let's try to avoid it. So I hired 7 different doctors. No one's ever beat the amount of doctors I had. I want to hear if anyone's ever had 8, let me know, and then I'll give you a medal or gift card. But I had like a functional medicine practitioner, a holistic medicine practitioner. I had a naturopath. I had a energy healing doctor. I was going to a Chinese herbalist. I was doing yoga and meditation, going to the gym. So I read every book, you know, whether it was vegan, carnivore, whatever the diets were at that time that were popular. And when I went for my pre-ops, they said, wow, you got better really quickly. We're going to call off the surgery. So by the skin of my teeth, I avoided it. And then I was on a low dose immunosuppressant at the time as well. And they're like, oh, it must be the meds that are really working. And I told them, well, yeah, but like I'm also doing 100 different things. And they're like, no, it's none of those things matter. And again, there was this disconnect of, I think I'm doing good for myself. And yet at least the Western medicine doctors didn't want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But then even between the, you know, the ones that are all about holistic, they would give me conflicting information. You should do this elimination. No, you should do this one. You should try these supplements. No, you should try those, right? And so it was really like the most complicated time in my life because I threw the gauntlet at my health, hoping something would work, but never actually knowing if it was working, right? So, I mean, there's obvious signs like you're feeling a little bit better, you're getting some energy back, but then you do something the next day and it might throw it off, right? So that's kind of where, sorry, somebody asking something.
I'm going to make sure everybody's muted except for you.
No worries.
There's me. Long list, lots of people and people are still coming in.
I'll keep going.
If you've got make sure that you're muted during this presentation. And whoever it was, I think they did mute themselves.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, so long story short, I kind of lived my life after those 2 episodes. Oh, just by the way, my last colonoscopy showed 0 signs of disease. I'm off all medication. I can basically eat whatever I want. I've traveled through Southeast Asia eating spicy curries and pad thais and stuff like that, and I've been fine. I can eat a whole pizza. I can eat ice cream, and I, don't end up in the hospital, which again was told to me would never happen. But I got my immune system and my health back to a place through
That's
sheer
great, but
will.
don't keep doing it or you'll end up back there.
Oh, no. Just to preface, I don't do those things.
I don't want people to get the idea that you can get healed and then you go back to your old ways.
Yeah. So I could do it. I don't, but I could. And I had tried it before, and it's obviously those things in the long term are not good. But I'm just saying that I was able to heal if I kept doing them. I'm sure there would be problems if I kept doing it. Yeah. So it was just to show that there was a contrast of I might never be able to do anything I want again. I'm basically losing weight like a fly, dropping like a fly, and then okay, now things are coming back up. So that always stuck with me, that story and those instances in my life, because I always went through life thinking there has to be a way we can somehow know when I'm taking something or I'm following a protocol that it's actually working. And I could have probably avoided tens of thousands of dollars on all these different doctors, or maybe had them at different times, of the healing process when they were needed. So it would just been, or even give them data, give the doctors data that says, hey, look what's going on, instead of, we go in there and we have to talk for 10 minutes about, hey, what, how did you eat? How did you sleep? And that fiasco that you always do. All right. So that's my story and how I got into looking at changing healthcare and making tools and services that can help people bridge these gaps, which is going to bring me to a little presentation I made for everybody. Let me know if you can see the screen. Yep, we're good.
Yeah,
everyone can see. Awesome. So today I want to talk about maximizing health outcomes with real-time monitoring. And before we dive into that, I think metabolism is thrown around a lot. I know Rita Marie talks about it, other people talk about it, and there's different definitions. This is kind of just me giving a simplified version, no matter where you are in terms of knowledge, to get us all on the same page, right? So metabolism is just really how your body is utilizing energy from all your inputs. Now, I know a lot of people say I have a fast metabolism or a slow metabolism. I gain weight easily, I lose weight easily, right? And they usually associate this to just food, which of course is a huge factor. But when you eat that food, how much you eat of it, what type of food for your body is going to differ from person to person. I always say there's 7 billion people on earth. None of us are the same. And yet we're all giving generic advice, right? But then how much water are you drinking, or liquids? Are you drinking enough is going to influence the food. Your sleep is going to influence that food. How much stress you have in your life, is it constant, chronic, from time to time, is going to influence that food, right? So all of these places, that every way that you interact with the world is going to affect how you're utilizing energy, right? Is it zapping it? Is it affecting other forms of energy that you're coming into? So I just did want to clarify this really quickly, because it is important for us to have a simplified version. When we mention metabolism, we're all on the same page. Guys, does that make sense? I want to make sure and check in. Yep. Okay, cool. The real problem that we looked at, and I know Dr. Rita Marie hammers this home all the time, is right now we have 1 billion people worldwide that are metabolically unhealthy. And unfortunately, this number is skyrocketing. Like, it's just going up and up and up. And if we dig into how big of a problem that really is, obviously it's a large number, but then 7 out of 10 diseases that kill humans today are diseases related to metabolism. So basically 70% of the reasons we die today are metabolic diseases. And if there's 1 billion people with their metabolism unhealthy, then you can just see how, and it's growing, then that's not a good thing is the point here. And then just digging down further, I'm going to assume a lot of us are from the States or North America, but in the US alone, 92% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. So almost everybody, right? This used to be 88% only 3 years ago. So you can see how fast it's getting to the number where it's almost 100. And this is something that is very concerning because it is rapidly growing. Obviously, the Dr. Rita Marie's of the world are trying to help as well, but it's obviously a huge issue. So digging into this a little bit more in terms of like, well, where did this come from? Why now? What's going on? I think there's a lot of places we could go to. The two I always like to anchor back are, hey, 100 years ago till now, we're getting 10 times more the energy sources per day than we used to 100 years ago, right? And most people don't actually realize this because it's hidden from them. So I purposely used images of small donuts on the right. In terms of size, a small donut might not look like a lot of energy, but it packs a huge punch of quick energy that, you know, your body can use. And unfortunately, in our modern day, we're also less active. So it's really just putting like this jet fuel into you all the time. A lot of the time people are snacking on these, or not just donuts. I'm calling them out just because it was a good visual representation. And then if you are reading food labels, they label sugars and other things that are jet fuel for us in ways that's not understandable, or they try to fudge it in a certain way. And don't get me wrong, like, you know, these foods were made to be addictive. These foods were made to be quick. A lot of these innovations actually came after the Great Depression, when 50% of Americans had no jobs and they needed quick, cheap food and sources. And then, you know, they realized people like the taste buds and made huge industries out of it. The other thing is, 100 years ago, we died from infectious disease. And today we die from lifestyle disease. So the good thing about the problem is that lifestyle is an intervention that actually works for metabolic diseases. Unlike, you know, back in the day, you had like the Spanish flu or the Great Plague. No matter how good your immune system was, you might have genetically not been there, and then, you know, a lot of people passed away because of those phenomenon. Then we invented things like extreme cleanliness standards, antibiotics, certain vaccines for certain things like polio, right? So we kind of got rid of the infectious disease, but now we're doing the damage to ourselves, which again, we actually have most of the control over, right? There's some things here or there, but we have that control, which is where all the empowerment comes from. All right. Everyone's still following along. Just going to make sure we're all good. I know some of this is a refresher because Dr. Redemery educates so well, but I wanted us all on the same page so that you could all have the same magnitude of the problem.
Yep.
Cool.
And feel free to put questions in there if you're missing
Yep.
a point, but they're saying good. Yes. So
Awesome.
Go for it.
Perfect. And the other thing I wanted to call out was when looking for, and you might know that there's issues or you want to improve your health. Obviously, if you're here on this webinar, you've looked for ways to improve your health. And this is probably not as applicable in the modern day, but in the past, and this is me included, has any of this sounded familiar? When you're looking for information, you're overwhelmed because there's so much out there. There's influencers, there's books, there's diets, you have TV, everyone's telling you how to eat, how to live, what to do for your health. When looking for it, is there a clear-cut plan? It's not made for you. Like I went back to that 7 billion people, we're all different, and yet everyone's trying to get us to eat one type of diet. This is why it gets super annoying, because the other thing that I've experienced is this is always a new fad diet, right? Hey, it was Atkins, then it was keto, then it was this, then it was that, then it was that. There's always, basically every 4 years, there's something that blows up. And again, this is no judgment or anything bad. I fall into the trap of, I got to check this out. This is new. It has to be good. Our brains love these things, right? What's the solution? This might be it. I don't know if anyone's been frustrated, but you have to weed out a lot of junk. People referencing studies. And when I go to read the study, I'm like, it's not at all what it said. Oh, I see they're selling something, or they're selling me a course. So then I have to check out if that course is good or not, or talk to people who have taken it, etc. And then the last thing is there's no way to verify any of this. Going back to my 7 doctors, I just trusted them. I did smorgasbord of things that I was like, well, something's got to give, I hope. And if not, I tried my best and I hired everybody I could, and I can at least walk away and say, hey, I did everything I thought was the best in my ability. So does it work, right? So overwhelmed, not made for me, annoying, frustrating, and does it work have been common things in my whole entire life, trying to solve my health problems. Even when I'm in a good place like I am now, these things still do come up. All right, moving on. In terms of current solutions, so when we were looking at, okay, well, how do we solve this? And I have firsthand experience with all of these. I've done so many blood tests in my life, can't even count. And by the way, I hate blood tests. Like for me, it's one of those, I got to lay down, 3 nurses are talking to me, my phone is playing a video, and I'm scratching my leg to make sure I'm not paying attention. So I always look for, can we not do the blood thing? That'd be great. But a lot of the time you still have to. But with point in time health tests, blood work included, but there's other ones like GM mapping, etc. They can be inaccurate. And even when they are accurate, you're always getting a baseline of if something's wrong or not. So I'm not saying that that's not true, but you're never really getting a moving average, primarily because anytime you do a point in time test, you can have millions of variables that are affecting that test at that time. I always like to say, if you go drinking the night before a blood test and you take a blood test, it's going to show a certain way. If you did a 5-day fast before a blood test, it's also going to show a certain way. So your short-term behavior before these tests can really influence them, which might not actually show an accurate picture. And then if you are actually getting a blood test every quarter or maybe every year, that's a really long time to know if something's up or not, or see an average, because you need so many more data points, right? So for me, I'm like, I'd rather not wait 10 years of one test a year to notice that there was a declining metric that I could have done in the first month. The second thing is diets. I did just mention that, but statistically 97% of diets fail. And a lot of the time when people go on diets, they usually go on one. If you look at the studies, they tail off, then they go on another one. This is almost worse than just sticking to one thing, because you do such extremes to your body, go back to the old way, do another extreme, and it really messes with that metabolism, because it's now confused at how to burn energy or utilize it. It doesn't really, you're always throwing your body off, right? There's no consistency. And it's not, they're never optimized for you, these diets. Like I said, some people have way more problems with certain carbs, or like an oatmeal. We see people like, hey, some people are really good at metabolizing that and some are not, and then I have certain vegetables that do really well for me, some don't. And that's, never going to be a cookie cutter solution. And then the last thing is there's obviously medication and surgery. And I want to preface that I think those are great tools. All of these are, actually. I'm not against any of these things, and they have their time and place. But surgeries obviously can be dangerous, which is why I try to avoid as much as I could. But they also don't get rid of bad habits or lifestyle decisions like we were just talking about that you actually control, right? So if somebody gets their stomach cut because they are obese, and I've had friends that do that, it definitely changes their life, right? Like they can't eat as much, they can walk better, it's amazing. But then I also see them still eating the same things that can affect other organs, so maybe you can't eat as much, but it doesn't mean that your pancreas or your heart or your kidneys are still not fighting what you're doing. And maybe that's not going to be a good thing in 5 to 10 years, right? So meds obviously treat symptoms. I haven't found a medication yet that, you take once and then it's done. Most of them, especially the more popular weight loss ones now, is basically like, if you're going to do it, you have to do it for life, or you yo-yo back to the old things. So again, great tools, all of them. We didn't feel like they were solving the problem, specifically for metabolic disease. So what was the real solution that we looked at? We said, okay, if there was a way to have tracking always on that gives you real-time feedback on how your metabolism responding to your inputs, not what somebody else is telling you to do. So what food you're eating, what exercise you're getting, what sleep you're getting. We basically said, okay, if there's no guesswork, we use your body's data, you get personal insights on that. It's trackable and simple to understand, can't be complicated, and you can make sustainable changes that you can keep for a very, very, very long time, ideally your whole life. Then that to us was kind of the winning combo, right? That's where we wanted to get to. I'm going to do another check-in. Everyone following so far? Anyone lost at anything? I want to make sure I'm being mindful of everyone's time and understanding. Any questions, Dr. Murumi? Good. Cool. All right, so that gets us to introducing Thea, the company that I founded with my co-founder. And basically what Thea does is analyze in real time how your body responds to food, exercise, stress, and sleep. The way it works in the most simple format, I'm going to do a live demo for you. I'm going to go over all the functionality. The most basic format is you put on a biosensor, which if you can look at my arm I'm wearing right now, it's right there. And this biosensor is then streaming data into my phone. When you record activities with the Thea app, they show your body's response in real time. So you can see here, somebody who was eating regular pasta versus chickpea pasta, the response on their metabolism is different, and the score, their metabolic score, is different. So that's at the core of what we do. Is now you actually have insight for the first time ever on, you do something and you see the result now, right? Versus before it was you do something and you hope that in 3 months it had the result that you wanted. So is that pretty cool? Everyone excited to dig in a little bit more? Awesome. The actual biosensor that we use right now, we're going to have more in the future, is a continuous glucose monitor. So a continuous glucose monitor, basically all it's doing is it's streaming from, like I said, this little biosensor, my blood sugar levels, always every 5 minutes intervals, and then putting that into our app. So now we have a continuous stream of data where we can look at averages like I was talking about, right? So even if you did a 5-day fast now, and then you went binge eating, we would see what happened during the 5-day fast, and then when you yo-yoed. Or if you're like really consistent and you're on a certain plan, or you're one of Rita Marie's programs, you can see how that's doing to you day in, day out, looking at averages, etc. The sensors themselves are all FDA approved. They are waterproof, and they're not actually they do pierce the skin, but they're not actually a needle. People think that a needle goes into you. It does for like half a second to get a filament in there. The filament is what's in your arm. It's 0.5 millimeters. It's super small, and it's bendy, which means when I'm moving my arm, I can't actually feel it, which is the genius of the technology, right? Because if there was a needle in my arm, I just wouldn't wear it. Essentially, I told you how much I like needles. It is exactly 0%. So the nice thing about our sensors is that they're like the smallest on the market, and they are always on streaming. The older models that some people use, you had to tap your arm to get the data, which was really annoying. So we really removed a lot of that friction where users didn't like that. Any questions around the sensor itself that you guys have that we can answer? Anything, does it hurt? Usually comes up.
Yeah.
Again,
No,
the guy that hates needles. The first time I did this, I had my fiance put it on. I was laying face down on the couch. I heard a click, and I waited like 20 seconds. I'm like, "Are you going to put it in?" She's like, "It's been in for like a minute. You're just a crybaby." So I actually didn't feel it go in.
Yeah.
And now I do it myself to
Now
give
you
me
can
some
actually
credit.
do it.
Yeah. To give me
So-
some credit. Yeah.
Question from Michelle was, can it be shared with the provider? Yes, that's true. We can talk about that as you want.
Yeah.
And then Joyce says, I've been using a Freestyle Libre for 3 months. A couple of sensors were not properly recording.
Yep.
Has anybody had the same experience? And is this available in Canada? And the other one was in London.
Yes. So we actually are a provider first company. So we allow practices, doctors, practitioners, coaches, leaders such as Dr. Rita Marie to have data on their clients. So if you are part of the Dr. Rita Marie program, where you have coaching with her, or you're part of our community, she will actually be able to see everyone's data that joins through her. And then now there's this nice unity of the provider and the patient have the same data. So now there's not that guesswork, which is one of my main problems. Was I like my doctors to have my data. They don't have to talk about or digest what's going on. So definitely we do that. The sensors can be faulty sometimes. They're not perfect yet. They're definitely working on it. Like a lot of their money now is going into the CGM technology. If they're ever faulty or they fall off, which can happen, you hit it with a towel or whatever, we've been able to replace at 100% replacement rate anytime that happens, right? So if you have a sensor or whatever, you can always hit us up and we get it replaced 100%. The actual readings can vary from sensor to sensor, but we've also tested multiple finger pricks, and we've seen variance between finger prick to finger prick, which was kind of shocking initially, because we're like, this is for diabetics. Initially, it was invented for diabetics, right? So why would the readings be FDA approved if they're not 100% accurate? This is something I'm going to talk about in a lot more detail in a second on how we get around that, because I think the solution we made makes that almost obsolete and doesn't really matter. Did I get all of it?
Yeah, and then just the location. There are a bunch of questions coming in now.
Yep.
So location available in Canada, Australia.
Sorry, yes. So we can 100% do Canada. We've done a couple times through Australia, and we can do London.
Okay, great.
Yep. So the only caveat is, for anything outside of the US, it's not the Libre 3. It would be one of the older models, because those countries don't have the Libre 3 yet, which is the smaller sensor.
Yeah.
So
it'd be like the 2. Okay.
Yeah, it would be the 2. Yeah.
All right.
It still works.
And then the question of, is a prescription needed?
Yes, 100% in the US, the prescription is needed. It's illegal to sell the device without a prescription. The nice thing is we've taken care of all of that, which means when you do come in as a user, we have doctors that prescribe for us. And then we have partnerships all over the country in the US with pharmacies that ship it to your house. So you wouldn't even know that you're getting a prescription, but when you onboard, we do get you one. Yep.
You get a prescription, right?
Yep.
Does it use Bluetooth, and what is the EMF exposure?
Yes, great question. The Libre 3 does use Bluetooth. It's because it's always on streaming. If EMF is a concern, you can still use it. It holds 8 hours of data. So I always say you can turn off the Bluetooth for 8 hours, scan the sensor or turn it on for a second, get the data, and then turn it back off. So really your exposure would only be three, maybe 4 times a day when you want to get that data.
When you want to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. At night, I always tell people, turn your phone on airplane mode. It'll hold the data for 8 hours. So once you sleep, turn it on quickly, sync it, and you can do it that way. The older models are not Bluetooth. They have to tap to scan. So if you're in Canada, London, or Australia, you would have to tap to scan, and those are not Bluetooth. They're just holding data until you transfer it over.
Until you transcribe it. And that's 6 to 8 hours as well. If they say
they're
8,
all 8 hours.
Sometimes it's not 8. I found gaps when it was like this. So yeah,
it should be 8.
It should be 8. It's supposed to be 8.
Yep. And then location.
I'd like to try this for myself and my patients. How do I connect? Should we put the link in the chat for them, or do you want to do? I can put that in the chat.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat. I'll keep going, and then I think we'll answer a lot of those things that are coming up right now.
Yeah, and I think
the location
stuff. Yeah.
The location question. So technically, it's approved for this area right here on the FDA clinical trials. So I looked into this deeply. We've had lots of clients, patients, users, etc., that put it on their stomach. Technically, really what the sensors need, they measured blood sugar levels through your fat cells. So when you're latching it on, as long as it has a bunch of fat cells to read from, it should work. So this would be, I would say my discretion is, we've tested abdomen and this arm. If you're going to do it anywhere else, we had somebody, ironically enough, put it on their bum. So we're getting the data. It's been fine so far. We always say this is kind of the most approved place. Stomachs worked fine, and then really it's up to you if you want to risk it somewhere else.
It's interesting because the Dexcom recommends the stomach, and they don't, and they say, oh no, it's not going to work on your arm. So it works wherever it works. There's a guy on YouTube that did a YouTube video on where he found to be the best placements, and it was arms. I find it inconvenient on the arm because then I have to figure out how am I going to sleep, right? And if I put it too far back, even if I sleep on my back, I press it and that kind of stuff. But
cool.
Who has access to the information that's collected in the app and the privacy and compliance?
So our privacy policy is you own the data. We don't sell it. When setting up, we do have to get the data from the Freestyle Libre app, but they really just take a name and email. So it's not like they know exactly who's on the platform. If that's a concern, just make up a name and email, and then it would be on the Thea platform. But again, if we're going to do anything down the road, we would either ask for permission if you want to be part of some kind of trial. If not, we would only use aggregate data. So it'd be like, if you were in a certain age range, we could use you as a data point, but you'd just be a number in that case study. There would never be anything there where we would share your data to anybody. It's obviously proprietary, very personal. And given my run with healthcare, I'm all for empowering the people.
Yeah. A couple of other quick questions that I can answer easily is it reusable or disposable? It's disposable.
Yeah.
Do you need a phone to read the data? Yes. So if you don't have a smartphone, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of the technology. You have to give the sensor usually about 24 hours to warm up. And he'll go into the cost and all that kind of stuff in a bit. Okay, great. Go for it. Does insurance pay for this? No way. Even if you're a type 2 diabetic, Insurance will not pay for it. They would rather pay for amputation, treatment for blindness, dialysis, that they'll pay for, but they won't pay for you to prevent those things from happening. That's our broken medical system. Sorry, I'm a skeptic. But it won't, unless you're a type 1 diabetic and you're completely out of control and you're on insulin, then they'll pay for it. That's it. Anyway, Go for it. You can tell I'm skeptical about the way our insurance
No
company
worries.
works.
So this is just a quick overview of how the app works in terms of logging things. We really try to leverage things that you already understand, right? So you know how to take pictures, you do it for Instagram, you do take it of your grandchildren, your children, etc. Really, when you're logging activities, we ask that you take an image. It's super simple, 2 clicks and you're done. And then we're going to give you a metabolic score around that activity and also a daily one, which we'll get into. So that's kind of our ask. We're trying to leverage things you already understand, not make you do too many complicated things. And that's more than enough for us to be able to action that data. The app overview itself has 3 kind of critical parts to it. Number 1 is a daily metabolic score. So this is going back to the accuracy of the sensors. The reason we don't actually care as much about how accurate the blood glucose itself is what we're trying to really understand is you're moving averages, right? So if you started wearing a sensor today versus a month from now, are your averages better? Are your daily metabolic scores better than they were when you started? If they are, we know that we're influencing the right things, which is things that you are doing are giving you a better metabolic health outcome over time. Our daily score goes from 0 to 100. Again, things that you understand, 100 of 100 on a test is great. The rings you see here go from red, yellow to green. So if you log in, you have like a 95 daily metabolic score and it's green, go on about your day. There's nothing to really investigate there. You're doing great. But if it's yellow, maybe you want to take a look at it later on when you're not as busy. And if it's red, it may be something you want to look into right away and see what's going on so that we can change course if we can, right? The second thing is you get to see visually your glucose data on a graph like this. And when you do log things, you'll see them pop up in little icons. If you click this icon, it'll show the image that you just took, and it'll also give you an activity score. So these are scored a little bit different than your daily. The activity scores feed into the daily. But here we're trying to give you insight on the activities that you can control and what they're doing, right? So did the glucose go really, really high? How long did it take to come down? All these things that are a little bit complicated and take a little bit of investigation, we're making into simple scoring for you, so you don't have to think about it, right? If you know you got a 50 out of 100 on something, then next time we can try it differently, right? You don't have to dig into understanding it completely. We're trying to make you just know what's going on and then change something. It doesn't have to be a big change. So those are the scores and the events. Any questions around this part for anybody?
I don't see anything. So why don't you keep going and I'll monitor the chat.
Sounds good. This I've already looked at or just went over. Now, the other thing that we allow both your providers that you work with, or if you're in Rita Marie's program, she would be able to do this with you, but you also get to run a metabolic report for any time frame that you want, right? So for example, if you want to say, hey, how did I do from March 1st and March 30th, you would run this metabolic report, and then we would show you, hey, this is how many times you had a spike outside of normal ranges, how many dips you had, what your time percentage and range was. We also show the glucose in that time range on a graph, so you can see, oh, these were the days I was spiking, and maybe you want to click on those activities, which you can on the graph, to show what spiked you. The last thing would be on the activities section itself, there's a search bar. So let's say you're experimenting with certain food and you're eating it daily, maybe let's just call it eggs. You could type in egg here and it would show every time you had eggs with a meal, how you responded, what the activity score was. And now you can really dig in. So maybe 50% of your meals you had a 95 and 50% of them were a 60. Well, what was the difference? Was it one ingredient, two, the timing of the day, right? So you can really kind of dig into it if you want. but you also don't have to. You can just look at daily scores, make little adjustments, and then we send you emails weekly that show you how you did from one week to the next. Any questions on the metabolic report? Nope. Okay, cool. We'll keep going. There's also a resource section. So how to implement documents. We have a daily content, like growing content base. You can search for questions in here. So what does my glucose score mean? How do I, do this? What does the CGM mean here? And of course, we're always available for any help in terms of tech things like CGM fell off, just hit us up. What does this mean? I couldn't find it. Fell off, but we're providing a lot of context here where you guys can come in here, just read something or ask a quick question and get your answer. For the pricing itself, so the way we price it is we have an annual membership of $149. This gives you the whole years of app access, all your data, all the metabolic reports you can run. We do give you those weekly insight reports. I want to mention that our reports aren't giving you dietitian advice or things that could go against what Dr. Rita Marie is telling you to do, right? So if Dr. Rita Marie is telling you a certain thing, then this would just solidify that, they're working when you do them. I mentioned we give you unlimited support. So sensors falling off, how to put things on, how to use the app in the best way. We're always around. And then we give you CGMs at $75 per sensor whenever you want in the whole year, right? So if you want to do it every single week, you can. If you want to try every quarter to check in, you can. If you're going to do a 3-month metabolic reset, you can do that, right? Our pricing includes a doctor's prescription, a pharmacy fee, and we ship it to your door for free. I like to say any good RX coupon in any state in the US is about $68 per sensor. It doesn't include the prescription, it doesn't include the pharmacy fees, and it doesn't include shipping to your door. So we're trying to, again, make it as easy as possible where it's like you order something online, it shows up to your door just like Amazon. Much better user experience, much easier, and a really, really, really comparable price to good RX codes anywhere in the States. Yeah, any questions on their pricing and how it works?
Yeah. Can children wear this?
Nope.
So technically, they're not approved for people under 18 years of age. We have tested on children, or let's just say, I might have found out that people use them on children. That's a better way to say it. So I would say my technical answer is they technically shouldn't use them, no.
Interesting, because the Dexcom is set up because it's set for type 1 diabetics, and kids are usually, type 1 diabetics. I mean, the most of the type 1 diabetics are kids, but I don't know how, I'm sorry to say that, but there's a lot of type 1 diabetics for kids and that they're approved. So it's interesting that they don't approve the Freestyle for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they technically say. So I have to say the same thing.
Yeah,
but
you have to say what they say, right? You have to toe the party line. Are there videos provided that teach how to use the device and create the reports?
Yes. So in the resource section that I showed, we have what the scores mean, articles, how to use it. Right. When you actually join, we have a whole onboarding process. So you go through the steps that teach you how to connect everything. We give you tracking on when the sensors are showing up. We show you how to log things, right? So you have to do a test log before you can actually do it. So we have a whole onboarding that actually walks you through every single step. Nice. And then you're good to go once you get the sensors.
And then how long did the sensors last? Somebody thought you just had one sensor and it lasted for the rest of your life. And I wish that was true, but it's not. So how long do the sensors last?
Yeah, so each sensor lasts 14 days.
Yeah.
So if you did a month, it would just be 2 sensors. You have to replace it once. They do turn off after those 14 days. Primarily because the way the readings could get inaccurate after that time, right? Which would be the worst case scenario is you feel like you're progressing and then the sensor might just be faulty. So we don't want that. Yeah. We are looking at other sensors in the markets that can last longer, but currently the technology is 14 days.
Great. And Annette points out that type 1 kids do have the option to wear Libre. So if you have a kid that you want to wear it, you do need to get a doctor to prescribe it. Okay, I think that's
Well,
it.
we can probably, I would say our doctors could probably prescribe it because it is prescription. So now that I think about it, yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Give it a try. Super.
Yeah, I
Okay.
misspoke there because our doctors can prescribe it.
Okay, good. As long
Yep.
as they're prescribed.
Yep, everyone will get a prescription. So every order basically has a prescription.
Now, are there some health because I know you have an extensive health condition questionnaire. Is there anybody that would be excluded because of situations that you don't?
No, we used to have those stipulations. We don't anymore.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So everybody
that tries can do it. Yay.
Yeah, everybody can do it. Yeah. Yeah. So we really, really hammered hard on making sure we can do that.
Yeah. So this is a good question. The sensors, it's one piece. So the sensor and the filament are all on one little tiny dime size piece in the 3 and 1/4 size in the 2.
Yeah.
And the price is for one sensor that's disposable, right? That's it. And then you can't put it on again within 2 weeks. No.
That's right. Yep.
There used to be some hacks that you could do that with the Dexcom, but they got smart and made it so you can't do it anymore. So anyway.
Yeah.
And patients buy their own sensors. If you're in the US, you need a doctor's prescription. The best way to get the sensors would be to go to your doctor, get a prescription, and then go to the pharmacy and beg for a discount code. My husband did that, and he was able to get like $50 or something like that, but it only lasted for 3 times, and then he had to pay the full price. So, but this is providing you the ability to get that prescription even when your doctor won't, and to have the tracking app to be able to watch it. Now, you could just sign up for the app, if you have a doctor that's giving it, or you have insurance that's covering it, but you want a more sophisticated tracking app than that, you would sign up for $150 a year, right? Is that correct?
Yep, that's 100% correct.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you have to go through here, or you have to go through a doctor and then go to the pharmacy. That's how you get them. Unless you're in Canada, and I hear that you can just walk into a pharmacy in Canada or London and buy them. Price-wise, they're not any cheaper. They're the same. I don't know how the Canadian dollar and the US dollar stack up, but I know somebody told me they went to Canada to buy one. It was $90.
Yeah. All right, we'll get some.
How long do we use it to get our metabolism all worked out and in track? That's a great question, and that's a loaded question. Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I think the most common way, about 65% of the time, people try it for a month. And then you kind of see from there where you're at, right? Because in a month, we used to say try it for 2 weeks. The problem with 2 weeks is your first week, we really would rather you not do like a lot of changes, because you want an accurate representation of where you're at, right? Then you start getting excited optimizing. You only have a week. So a month is we really suggest at least a month to get some kind of data and some kind of momentum. And then the reason we made our model the way we did is, if you then feel like it's super beneficial at that time, just keep ordering more sensors. They're only $75. We'll ship them to you. And if not, then you could wait a little bit, do like a check-in a month, 2-3 months down the road, and keep doing that during the year, right? It could be like your quarterly check-in, 2 weeks or a month. And it really depends. Like if you're traveling to Hong Kong and you want to optimize your metabolism, like stat, because you're like, I don't want jet lag for the first 2 days, another great idea, right? So it's really going to depend on your use cases and where you're at after that first month.
And here's the thing, from having run our Sweet Spot blood sugar balancing program for 12 years now, and seeing the variations, it depends. I say it's a loaded question. It depends on how dedicated you are to seeing the changes, but actually changing. And you go, wow, I have to give up my favorite popcorn because it shoots my blood sugar up. If you're not willing to do that, you're not going to get your metabolism in balance, right? Oh, it looks like whenever I walk around the block for 15 minutes after a meal, my blood sugar stabilizes. If you're not willing to do that or able to do that. So it just depends. What we find when we do our blood sugar, our Sweet Spot course, and some of you are in it, we work with people for 12 weeks or 10 weeks, something in the 10 to 12 week range. And we continue to work with people because there could be other factors that are affecting the blood sugar. You can have an infection in your gut, right? You can have an old surgical wound that's infected. You can have so many things, and it's a lot of stress and sleep and all the other things. So will you get your metabolism all worked out and on track in a month? Occasionally people do, because they're super dedicated.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, no. That's why, being able to go back. I personally continue to wear it, because when I wear it, it's like Big Brother is watching you, right? I can't go, oh, I'm just going to go eat a bowl of pineapple now and not pay attention, because if I do, it goes, oh, my blood sugar went up to 175. Okay, I don't like that. That's not good for me. So it's like my built-in accountability buddy is what I look at it at. So I've been wearing it almost continuously. I take breaks for a week or two or a month or two here and there, but pretty much continuously for, I'm going to say 6 years now. So, and it's, like I said, depends on what else is going on with you. If you're already diabetic and your blood sugars are really high, it's going to help you get it under control, but not as much as somebody who now has fasting glucose in the 60s or the 80s. And they say, I just want to do this for prevention, right? Oh, I found out that there's 3 foods that I shouldn't eat. They should stop eating it. You're good to go. Anyway, let's see. Can we get this as an individual? Yeah, you just go through that. The link is on the screen, drritamarie.com/CGM. And you don't need a prescription in Australia, as far as I know.
No, you don't.
Do I understand that you type in what you've eaten, or you take a picture of what you've eaten, right? And you can see, oh, look, every time I ate those corn chips, my sugar shot up, and you can do those searches, right? Or you could type them in, or you could do both.
Yep.
Let's see. Okay.
Sue.
Is there training? Yeah. Want to address that one? Is there training for health coaches to get the most out of using those with our clients?
Yes, absolutely. If you want to shoot me an email, then I'll give you all the details around, for health coaches, how we work with you, and then how you can get your clients' data, and essentially everything I talked about. So here's my email.
Great.
I'll send you all shoot me one, just basically say health coach, and then I'll get back to you. Yep.
Yeah, and we also have an insulin resistance training program for practitioners, and you can go through that, and we take you step by step through the process I've been using for the last 30 plus years, and we have probably over 1,000 people who've graduated from that program. And this is a great adjunct to that program, right? If you have an account set up with Thea to get your people their CGMs, and you've gone through that training, you know exactly what to do, and you can help people dramatically. And Anita wants to know, do we have to know the exact amounts of what we ate, like a half a cup of carrots or 4 ounces of turkey or whatever?
No, you don't. You really don't. That's why I say we really just kind of push for an image. So the nice thing about an image, it gives a lot of context to both you and, let's say, a provider or Dr. Rita Marie, if she's going to look at it. Because if you say, I had this much chicken, this much that, without an image, we don't know if that's accurate, right? Or some people would say, hey, I had a small sandwich, why did my blood sugar spike? And
we see a sub.
The sub, right? And it's like, okay, well, nothing bad against that person, is that they're in their head, their portion control means that that's small, right?
Yeah.
So now there's an education piece. And then you can always look back on things and look at the image, and you would understand better what it was in that meal.
Yeah.
Now, we have people, don't get me wrong, they literally put like 3 almonds, 2 blueberries, 1 strawberry, like literally line item by line item. We're happy to take that data if you want to log it that way. It actually helps us build a better product and service, but you definitely don't have to do that.
Yeah. But here's what I would recommend. If you are going to take pictures and you have 4 ounces of turkey, like you said, and half a cup of carrots, and you ate 3 helpings of that, put three pictures in there, so we know that, that's funny that just a half a cup of carrots did that. No, it was half a carrots, right? Oh, and we forgot about the 2 cups of blueberries that you had.
Yeah.
after that for dessert, right? So that's where you're going to get. And because the amounts make such a difference in your outcome, like I can eat, this much pineapple if I drink it with a nice big green smoothie or a huge salad or a big plate of steamed vegetables, and my blood sugar doesn't budge. If I just sit down and eat a bowl of pineapple without anything else, or a big bowl of pineapple, my blood sugar shoots up. So the portions help you to determine, hey, I don't have to give up this food. I do recommend the M&Ms, right? If 3 M&Ms don't raise your blood sugar, well, it doesn't mean you can eat a whole bag. But most of the time, I recommend we give up the M&Ms. Anyway. Kelly, I just brought the sweets. Oh, this is perfect to use with that. So all the stuff, reach out in the Facebook group. There's a Facebook group for that. Reach out in there and we will tell you how to use it with it, because the whole first couple of modules is on establishing your metabolic baseline and your peak. And like Boris said, don't change your diet until after you go through that, because otherwise you go, oh, everything's perfect. Well, yeah, because you're following this perfect diet that we laid out for you. So yeah, absolutely reach out in the Facebook group and we'll support you there. Yep. Would using a CGM be inappropriate for someone with an ED? I think of it, erectile dysfunction. So
eating disorder. Yeah.
An eating disorder. I think anybody who's going to get data that is super useful, but yes. I think you have to make a decision. You have to, as a clinician, have to make a decision as to whether this is a good thing to do or not. In some ways it might be, but if it's somebody who's already like anorexic and isn't eating anything, you may shoot them in, worse direction than they were. And if it's somebody who is binging and purging, and they put all this stuff in and they see, oh, all I have to do to get my blood sugar to go down is to throw up, then it could make it worse. Yeah. So I would just on it as a clinician, I would, make a decision on a case by case basis.
Yeah. I would just add to that, Dr. Rita Marie, pursue. For practitioners, we can adjust the bands and the scoring accordingly. So for example, if it's too hard to get a good score, we know that people might get demotivated and then just binge eat anyway, like, oh, I'll just eat the cake anyway. So we can adjust those for clients and patients that you have if you are a health coach. And then on the flip side, if somebody's like an athlete and they're getting like the best scores all the time, we can actually tighten them to give them a little more motivation to like get that extra like 1 or 2% of performance.
Yeah.
So that's just something that we do. And we are mindful of, we don't want people thinking of food as good or bad. That's not the goal, right? The goal is to give you insight and then have you understand what's going on and then make the best decisions for you in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And Shane, I guess a good idea, maybe the patients can put a dollar bill next to the plate so we can gauge the size of the plate. Yeah, because if you've got one of these big platters and you take a picture of it and we think it's a dinner plate, we're like, oh, that looks good. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yeah. The only CGM prescribed is the Freestyle Libre. Is that true?
Yes,
you were working on Dexcom, but
we can do Dexcom. The issue with Dexcom is they're a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
So the reason, and honestly, if you are in the US, I'm not sure if you are, but in the US, the Freestyle Libre 3 has the exact same functionality now as the Dexcom, which is being always on. It's also much smaller. So
Dexcom, I'm switching as soon as I use up my next 3 months supply of this.
Yeah.
Right? Look at the difference.
Yeah.
And this is 2 pieces. So you have to put the sensor in and then you have the transmitter. You have to remove the transmitter, save it, and the transmitter lasts for 3 months, but then you have to use the new sensor every 10 days, not 14.
Exactly.
It's just bigger, a lot bigger. The signal between the sensor and the cell phone or the reader is microwave radiation, even if it's turned off some of the time, and that's harmful for human health, according to Mark. Is there any work being done to completely avoid harmful EMFs? Yeah, I mean, living in a cave is one option. Avoiding all technology is another option. And we always have to do the risk reward ratio. And I'm a crazy person when it comes to being rigorous about what I eat, how I exercise, my exposures. We don't have any chemical laden anything in our house, but there's certain things that if I give it up, it could make my health worse, right? So for me, being able to monitor is super, super helpful. So, you have to weigh it out, right? If you're eating, I don't know, packaged processed food, but you're worried about the little bit of radiation here, I think you would be better to focus on cleaning up the diet. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. And I would say, Mark, totally understand. Like I'm the same.
Yeah.
Airplane mode's on at night. No, the Wi-Fi goes out, like we have a clicker, all that stuff. But if you are turning it on like 3 times a day for 20 seconds to get the data, it's going to be not as much exposure comparatively to other things. Like even walking downtown at a busy city like New York, you're getting a lot of EMF exposure just by doing that. Right. So.
Right. Yeah. I know. We can't avoid it all. As I said, I didn't mean to be, rude by saying live in a cave, but seriously, even some of the places that we used to say, oh, just go live at the top of the Himalayas, there's this pollution that gets there. There's stuff that happens, and probably you get a good cell signal from way up there because it travels so far. So you might not even be able to get away from EMFs up there. So yeah, it's a good question. My team members put the 2 programs in there, the insulin resistance for practitioners and the sweet spot blood sugar for us. For those in the US, we can scan. Can we still use the Freestyle Libre 2? Clarify that if we have the sensors. Can you, I guess it means, can we still hook it up to the app? Yeah. So we can, so we just so everyone's clear, if you already have a sensor, whether it's a Dexcom or any of the Libres, we sync up with every single sensor on the market. Yeah. If you just want the software, there's a little section that says I have my own sensor. And then you just click that and then you'll check out and just pay the $149 for the year. Yeah. And I can attest to that because I have mine hooked up to the app.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. Very informative. I'm looking. If I missed any of your questions, I've been trying to get through them all, but if I missed them, just type them again. Just type your question again if we missed it. Otherwise, we will adjourn. So it's drreademarie.com/CGM, and you'll see the options that you have for trying it out. Do all the variables, this food with exercise after via yoga with this start to become too much? No, actually ask some of the folks who have completely turned their lives around by being in our sweet spot program, right? You start to learn for your body, right? That I need to exercise after I eat versus before I eat, that I need to have smaller portions. And it can be a little overwhelming at the beginning, but it's better than dying. Sorry, it's better than developing diabetes or heart disease, or some of the metabolic imbalances cause so many diseases, right? So I'd rather deal with this kind of data than be tired all the time, brain fogged all the time, and at risk of a heart attack. So yeah, getting your health back takes work. And, like we said at the beginning, I think Boris mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of things out there, studies out there that, somebody will read the study and make a conclusion that the study didn't even make because they want to sell you a product. And everybody wants to give you, here's the quick fix. Just take this. And I wish there was a quick fix. Just take this supplement and you don't have to deal with any of it. Just eat in a certain order, which somebody whose book I just ordered just to see what she was really saying, because that's what it implies. And you can still eat pizza and drink beer. You just have to do it in a certain order. And I'm like, huh? Yeah. So we really do need to make a decision that your health is important to you. Is the app available? Yes. Can you get the old sensors if you did not want? Oh, like if they want to specify that they want the 2s versus the 3s?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. We allow any of the sensor orders. We have the default as the 3 because most people enjoy the small footprint, but absolutely. Just let us know and we'll get you the Libre too.
Yeah. So Kelly, I think that you'll figure it out, right? And you'll find that feeling good makes it worthwhile, makes the initial learning process. Like, if Boris didn't go through all that stuff, he probably wouldn't be here talking to us today. And he probably couldn't make it through a whole hour plus of talking because he'd be running off to the bathroom and he'd be a skeleton, right? Because if feeling good is so worth it. Right. Yeah, I go out and I exercise every day and I lift my weights and I run and I make good food. But the reward I get is feeling amazing all the time. And that's what I want for you. And it wasn't always like that for me. I didn't feel like this when I was in my 20s. So, yeah. Okay, one new message and then we'll go. Yeah, so we'll send out a replay of this. Just watch your email tomorrow. We'll send out an email. We'll give you the links to getting the CGMs, give you a little recap summary of this. And so watch your inbox mañana. Okay. So Boris, thank you so very much for being here with us today and sharing this insights and information. I personally love CGMs. It's worth it for me. And I know I just added protein powder to my smoothie. When I drank the smoothie yesterday, it didn't budge my blood sugar. I looked at my blood sugar after the smoothie and I added protein powder. It wasn't anything with sugar in it. It was like a clean protein powder. And my sugar went up to 123. It's back down to 107 now. But I'm like, maybe that protein powder isn't the best for me. Who knows? Right. So there you go. So thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and check your inboxes tomorrow if you want to watch again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. I had a great time.
I'll review. I'll just wave goodbye to everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces. It's nice to see. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.